dug them up. And at the same time, in Alaska, the U.S. dug up some more that had been lying there under ice, 0 degrees for I don't know how many years. The U.S. dug those up, but the U.S. went one step further. They actually mailed the samples in the mail back to Washington or wherever they sent them. They just went in the mail. So this woman took $85,000 of her own money out of her house, mortgaged it, to go on this expedition. What the? Someone got a cell phone in here? Oh, okay. Anyway, she took $85,000 out of her house to dig up this germ. And when I asked her why, I sat through 2 hours. She gave a little lecture here. Only about 10 people came. It was very, very quiet. I think they were all scientists except me. And I said, well, why would you do that? And she said, well, we have to know how it killed people, so that if it happens again, well, no. I said, well, it is going to happen again now, isn't it? You dug them all up, So this is like the bird flu. Do not believe it for one moment, but keep washing your hands. Just normal things. Let's remember that in Victorian times, women were dying in childbirth, wealthy women, all women. As soon as they took the birthing away from the midwives, who washed their hands, and they put it into the hospital and said women could not study medicine, women started having their babies with the doctors. They were all dying from infections, and the babies sometimes. And so Semmelweis said to them, don't come straight from a cadaver that you've been dissecting and put your hands into a woman's birth canal. This is what's doing it. Wash your hands when you come from an autopsy. Wash your hands when you come from an infected dead person. They didn't even think of washing their hands. And so you know what they did to him for telling them that? He was hounded to his death, Semmelweis. And so now they're still not washing their hands. In third world countries, 25% of people in hospitals die of infections, and in first world, 10% still die of infections. So, they're still not listening to Semmelweis. So, they don't learn. Now, here's Iraq. Begins a lockdown ahead of the vote. Oh, that's very democratic. We're going to have a big lockdown. Nobody gets into the country. Nobody gets out until we have this vote. And it's called, this is the sun here, Iraq's new birth. Okay? But this birth is not going to be of a democracy, trust me. So the heavy security foils the violence, high Sunni turnout, all of this, and they're blocking out anybody, the insurgents, in other words, the resistance, because this, I told you before, this election is illegitimate. This is international law. This is UN. Any election held under an occupation is an illegitimate election. The elections in Palestine, same thing. Big joke. So now, this is going to be another U.S.-controlled so-called democracy. Well, there's more chairs down here, folks. If you need chairs, they're right here. And so now they're going out for constitutional reform in Iraq. Meantime, at the same day, 50 rebels, they're calling them rebels now. They never use the word resistance. It'll never, ever be used. Insurgents, rebels, gunmen, making it illegitimate. So 50 of them killed, cleaning up the place for the big democratic vote. So, here's a good one. Parliament's assisted suicide debate. We're going to have another one now. They had one about 7 years ago. Is expected to split the parties. So what we have this is about euthanasia. Supposedly, it's going to be a bill about if you request, let me go now, I can't stand it anymore, give me the pill. Or if you can't request it or whatever, you're gaga, your brain isn't functioning. But I'm wondering, like Holland, how far this bill will actually go once it's out there. So keep your eye on this one, because it just says that it would allow anyone to help the terminally ill die, okay? So keep a close watch on this little bit that's coming through, because we could end up like Holland, where if someone is not capable of saying anything, the doctors... here we have our own method. It's the morphine drip. Once you're on the morphine drip, that's it. So anyone, who once they're on the morphine drip, they're going. So remember that. Now, poor old Saddam, he's going to trial as scheduled with a swift execution. In a way, he's sort of like Timothy McVeigh, who came out on TV after 3 months with them in jail, saying, "Kill me now, I did it, it's all my fault," even though there was a whole gang of them. So they didn't want him saying anything, and they don't want this guy getting, I told you ages ago, didn't I? They don't want him going to court and telling how for 27 years he worked for the CIA and the Americans, and he didn't gas the Kurds. That was Iranian gas, I'm sorry. And all those bodies they found, that was from the war with Iran. Yes, it was. I have all the papers. So yes, he was just another dictator propped up by the U.S., just as evil as the rest of them. But they're adding on to his crimes so that nobody's going to care that he doesn't blab. He is not going to get a chance to say anything about his affiliation with the Bush family, with the CIA. But there's a couple of things he didn't do, you see. He was supposed to go all the way through. So they said to him in '89, privatize your oil. He said no, because he was a Stalinist. He wanted to keep the oil, don't privatize it. And of course, Stalin was another monster. But anyway, Saddam believed in that social thing. Okay, I'm not going to privatize the oil. Bad, bad, bad. Then he tells them he's going into Kuwait because he's caught Kuwait slant drilling, which he did. And Kuwait, of course, used to belong to Iraq before the British partitioned everything off. So this April Glaspie sits there and she listens to him and she goes, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. He thinks it's okay, he goes into Kuwait. What does he get? The highway of hell. So, no, there were certain things, and then he started changing to euros. Oh, that was the last straw. So he had to go. And the reason, and I told my class years ago, in the first year, 5 years ago, I told them there'd be another invasion of Iraq. I said, that's why they didn't do anything to Saddam in the first invasion. They needed him as an excuse for the second invasion. And I said that in an article in, 1998 or something. And I knew that's what they would do, and that's what they did. Now, with the marijuana, I don't know if anyone's following what they're doing with Mark Emery or what's happening there. But the judge, what's his name again? I can't think of his name. Anyway, he probably is going to hand him over, I would say. Anyway, the marijuana, these are experiments they've done with marijuana-like drug reduces anxiety in rats. Well, why the hell not? It does in people. Anyway, this is what they've discovered. Then another thing they've just discovered about pot is this. Pot actually, now I'm going to read you this. Hippocampuses are the part of the brain responsible for learning and memory. And the study held true for either plant-derived or the synthetic version of cannabinoids, they call them. Now they say this is what happens. Chronic use of marijuana may actually improve learning memory. When the new neurons in the hippocampus can mature in 2 or 3 months. So it actually replaces your neurons. Your memory and your learning gets better. So as an old hippie, I can stand here and say, yes, I think it has. So now this guy here gave the world Valium. Leo Sternbach gave the world Valium. Now, he looks like a happy guy, doesn't he? Gave them Valium. And I had a friend of mine who was on Valium for a few months before she went to the shrink. And I went to visit her one day, and she had 4 walls in the kitchen. She painted them all a different color, and she thought they looked great. The kitchen looked great. She was on this stuff. So she was really happy about that. So now, the other thing that's come out in the now is the organic panic. Did anyone see this? Okay, you can still get the now because it's still out there in some of the bins. It comes out on a Thursday. They've got an excellent article trying to get the now. In the States now, what the companies, the corpo farms want to do, they're pushing for a bill that will allow them to put synthetics into organic food. They want to turn to organics and make the money on it, but they also want to be able to put, I guess, things into the food that'll keep them longer or God knows what, but they're doing a bill, they're pushing a bill through like that now. So we're going to end up now having to go to the supermarket, and instead of seeing a sign saying certified organic, then we're going to have to come out with another label that says, this is really organic, okay? So this is what they're trying now. But they will, it's like Codex. They will keep, they never rest. It's 24 hours a day for them, 24/7. They never rest. Now, this tragedy in Pakistan. Now, I told my class, I guess back in '99 or something, that Pakistan's Supreme Court, and I still have the article, it's a little tiny one, came out with this announcement before any of this happened over there. They said, by 2001, we are going to have an interest-free economy. Now, what they meant was, not only that they're not going to charge exorbitant interest, but that their government probably wouldn't borrow from banks anymore, like ours does. Their government would create their own interest-free money. So I said at the time, what's going to happen over there? And it said in this article that the banking community, the cartel is called the community, was very anxious over this. Pakistan saying this because they would have showed the rest of the world, look, this is how you do it. So anyway, they can't now, of course. And then 2 weeks ago, I heard on the news, very late at night, that Pakistan, the Pakistani government said, we are watching the United States weather wars, unquote. 2 weeks later, okay, we're going to discuss HARP and the chemtrails tonight. Now, it has been proven that HARP can instigate. It doesn't do the whole earthquake business, but it can instigate certain things if it is applied to a fault area. It depends on where you apply it. And HARP being at the top of the globe, and they say it's to find underground bunkers, that electricity, magnetism, the ELFs, whatever you want to call them, that come out of HARP, when they go into the ground, they're not the same as when they come out. So from the Arctic, they can place one of these ELFs in the ground. But when it comes out on the other end, where they have sent it, it has about 10,000 times the power that it had when it first went into the ground. And I also, tonight, whoever wants to sign on, I have from William Thomas from 4 years ago, all of that about the chemtrails, down to the last, what's in them, what they're being used for. I interviewed him 4 years ago. I paid $25 for the book on it, but I can do it for you. I think for $7 I can get it done. So I will have those out at the end for whoever wants to sign on for that, all the information on the chemtrails, so that you can let other people know this is not a figment of anybody's imagination. This is happening. In fact, the people in, is it Osceola near Ottawa there? The Ojibwe Indians went to Ottawa years and years ago and said, stop spraying us, we're all getting sick. That was the first one. They started spraying the natives. So we will be discussing the chemtrails, and they work with HARP. Those two things go together.